Everyone. Mansi Gupta this side from EduRamp Learning Services, and I'm your host. And I'm happy to welcome you all to today's panel discussion on fostering innovation through cross-cultural learning. So, in today's fast-changing global world, innovation grows when people from different cultures and backgrounds come together and share ideas. So, that's what we will explore in today's discussion. So, we are glad to have amazing panel leaders with strong experience and learning, talent development, and organizational growth. So, first we have Manoj Kumar, a highly experienced learning and development professional with over 20 years of experience across insurance, technology, and corporate training. He is currently a Chief Learning and Development Manager at Chola General Insurance and has worked with leading organizations like ICICI Prudential Life Insurance and Tata Interactive Systems with global exposure and strong passion for people and development. So, welcome, Manoj.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mansi.
Next, we have Kriti Kapoor, a learning and development capability transformation leader with over 20 years of experience across telecom, BPO, education, and technology. She was most recent director capability at Optum Global Solution, and she was a contributing through leadership consulting. Her work in building large-scale learning and strategies and deriving HR transformations bring a powerful perspective to today's discussion. Welcome, Kriti.
Thank you so much, Mansi. Glad to be here.
We have Harshil Jadhav, an experienced HR professional with over 14 years of expertise in talent strategies, leadership development, and business partnering. He is currently a senior people partner in Technip Energies, and he was worked with organizations like JSW Steels and Mahindra Group. His blend of HR expertise and coaching brings valuable insights into building future ready talent. So we all welcome Harshil. Welcome, Harshil.
Thank you so much, Mansi. Looking
Okay.
forward to this conversation.
Guiding this conversation, we have our moderator, Sejan Thomas, a seasoned L&D leader with over 20 years of experience, currently leading distribution capability and people development at PNB MetLife Insurance Company Limited. He has been instrumentally in aligning learning strategies with business outcomes and building impactful leadership ecosystem. So we all welcome Sejan. Welcome, Sejan.
Thank you, Mansi. Really looking forward to moderating this discussion with all our panelists, and it will be a great opportunity to interact with the audience as well.
Great, great, great. So, with a such diverse expertise panel members, I am sure today's conversation will be insightful, practical, and insightful. So, without further delay, let's get started. Over to you, Sijin.
Thanks again, Mansi. Today's discussion, we are focusing it around, how do we foster innovation through cross-cultural learning, and topic that it is no longer limited to just organization, but it crosses across geographies, cultures, and diverse ways of thinking, isn't it? If you look at it, innovation today rarely comes from one place or one perspective. It emerges from a lot of ideas, experience, your and different sets of cultural lenses, and we see it in our day-to-day lives. And so essentially the objective for us today will be to, and with our esteemed panel being there, will be to, how do we explore cross-cultural diversity, how does that enable innovation? That will be one part. Second, we'll try to see how organizations actually build capability through this learning and leadership. And third part, probably we'll try to fit in is how do we sustain this momentum, rather than a one-time initiative, how do we keep sustaining this? So in terms of, ground rules, there is no right wrong answers, just we are sharing our experiences, and difference in perspectives are always welcome. And yeah, and the idea is to understand that, when we listen, it is to understand and not to debate. So and I hope the entire audience, whoever is joining in from all across, will actually benefit from this discussion. So the first segment that we have today is, the understanding of the power of cross-functional learning. And to begin, let's just establish one shared understanding of how this connects to innovation in the real organization. So my first question that I'll ask is to Harshal. Harshal, once more a warm welcome. And my first question to you is, how does cross-cultural diversity, how does it contribute to innovation in your organization?
Right. So, Sujin, thank you so much for setting the context. So at Technip Energies, we are a global organization and we operate with a strong belief that innovation does not happen in isolation, but it happens when diverse perspectives come together. Given the scale and the breadth of our organization, the cross-culture collaboration is not something that is occasional for us, but it is part of our everyday work. And because of this diversity, learning from each other actually becomes quite natural. From my experience of working in global teams, I have often seen that innovation begins with learning, and cross-culture diversity creates that rich environment for such kind of a learning. So, for example, let's talk about our organization where we are executing global and complex projects. So, when people from different disciplines, people from different backgrounds and cultures work together, collaborate together, they just not share the work, but they also share different ways of thinking. They share different ways of solving problems, and of course, they bring to the table the lessons they have learned from their respective experiences. So, since I said we operate and deliver large complex projects, so normally these projects are first of its kind, and therefore there is no ready-made solution available, and hence our teams have to actually depend and rely on the expertise of other regions and other teams. And here is where I feel that innovation comes into play, because as an organization we believe in leveraging different mindsets, different behaviors, and it is not only restricted to the technical capabilities, but it also includes cultural fluency. It also includes collaboration at a larger scale. So this basically helps the teams to address the challenges from the multiple points, which in turn actually helps us to build solutions which are more innovative, which are more creative, and at the same time robust and adaptable.
Mm.
For organization like us, another thing that basically stands out is how cross-culture learning, collaboration, and diversity actually encourages curiosity and questioning, because we feel that when people are actually exposed to different approaches, they naturally start asking questions like, why do we do certain things in this way? Or probably, how does this is handled in your team in a different way? So basically, this curiosity actually pushes the teams to look beyond the traditional methods and adopt newer ways of working.
So,
So
Harshal,
this
a
is
quick
also,
question, if it's
yes,
okay, just a quick question.
yeah.
So, is there a platform which is there to create it to, enable this curiosity that you mentioned, or is it a
Yes.
natural thing, or how do you, you know,
So,
um,
so it is both, in fact, so Sachin, over the period of time. So we are an organization into a business of more than 75 years. So as an organization, we have developed that maturity and we have developed that to our culture. However, at the same time, we do have platforms where people get an opportunity to engage and share their views and ideas while working with diverse teams and also with diverse clients. And that's where my next point actually comes into play. Like for organization, for our organization, actually customer meeting customer expectations is also one of the priorities. And since our client base is diverse in regions and in expertise and in demands. So basically, we believe in leveraging expertise from different region to help them understand the local context. So here also, basically, diverse views, perspectives come into play, which actually helps us in delivering and bringing that innovation to customer offerings. And of course, to add on to this, we have another powerful aspect that is our learning. So this also strengthens the innovation and the learning culture in the organization. So it is both the structured learning that we leverage. So through structured learning, basically we ensure that our workforce is equipped to manage, adapt various regional situations. And beyond structured learning, also we feel that impactful learning happens informally also through collaboration across cultures. So overall, I can say that cross-culture diversity contributes to innovation by enabling continuous learning, by understanding new perspectives, new ways of working. And in a global organization like ours, that learning actually becomes the strongest drivers of innovation.
Thank you. Thanks, Harshal. I think that has been extremely enriching. On that same note, my second question I have is for Manoj. Manoj,
Yeah.
you know, Harshal talked about all the things that we can do to, or they have been doing in the organization to enrich the same curiosity and cross-cultural learning. And what do you think are barriers in today's time? While we try to leverage this cultural diversity.
Sure.
You
Thank you,
can
Sachin.
respond generally and also maybe
Yeah.
from a Chola experience, your experience in Chola also.
I'll keep it little general here. And what Harshal said was innovation doesn't happen in isolation. That is something a very good catch that I would like to take it and then want to start it from there. See, generally, when I talk about barriers, especially in leveraging the culture diversity, there are like one barrier is the communication. The minute when we go culturally diverse, it is communication, which I don't want to talk much about it. But I want to share a couple of stories. I hope stories are okay, right? Okay. So,
Always welcome.
sorry.
Always welcome.
Yeah. So I'll take you through three friends, Rajesh, Suresh, Naresh, just to give you names here. And these three are very passionate cricket fans. And when they want to watch a cricket match at that village, that particular place is surrounded with a 6 foot wall. So what did they do? They arranged a 2 foot bench. They stood on the bench and they started watching it. Sounds fair, right? But the catch here is Rajesh is 5 feet tall, Suresh is 4 feet, and Naresh is only 3 feet. Now what happens? All were given the same bench. Did all three got the same opportunity? Yes. But did all three watch the match happily? Not really. Because this is something we often believe that treating everyone the same is fair, but treating everyone the same does not always meet everyone's need. This is one of the biggest barrier that every organization need to think about it. Providing equal opportunities that which doesn't create engagement is one of the biggest barrier in any organization. This is part one of it. Or maybe I'll take two because first one is communication, which I said. Let me give you another interesting aspect. As a kid, when I was growing, or maybe not as a kid, I'll say that especially in 80s and 90s, people, any time when we talk about the cross culture, this is one story which has been taught to us. So I thought I will just try to recall it. Um, there was a very popular detergent company, okay, who had created a poster and it has three images. I can, Siji, you can correlate. There are three images. The first image says that it is a dirty shirt. In the second one, they drip it in the detergent one. And in the third one, they remove it. It is a clean white shirt or clean shirt. Now, this campaign was super duper success. Everybody appreciated. And then this particular campaign was asked to be promoted in Saudi, at Saudi Arabia. The same design, same campaign, but it failed completely. Why? You know that they read from the other side, which is from right to left. So what happened? A clean shirt dipped in a detergent. When you pick it out, it becomes a dirty cloth. So now what has happened here? Here it the what worked brilliantly in one culture can fail badly in another culture. So that's where we saw that ignoring cultural context can turn a success story into a biggest misunderstanding. So to put it in a nutshell, all the three things. The one, different communication styles that can create confusion, which is one of the core barrier. The second one, providing equality without awareness does not create any sort of engagement. And finally, the third one, ignoring the cultural context that can turn even a major success into a massive failure.
Thanks, Manoj, and I completely agree. In fact, there is this, I was just Googling up, there is this viral video which is going in where about our prime minister,
Mm.
where in this, anyone can look it up. It's called, it's a Spanish video basically, and where they have small images with of very celebrities across in Spain, but in a different, very natural pose, a pose which we do early in the morning, some when we
Mm.
let go
Yeah, I
of
saw that. True.
external ways. Yeah, so that,
Yeah,
but it's a part of their culture. They don't take it
culture.
otherwise. It's a very normal thing, and they actually, it shows that celebrities are also normal.
Normal.
But India has backlash saying that how can you show our prime minister,
Like that. True.
in a different post like this? So it's just about culture, and culture
Culture.
can be a great
True.
barrier also. And I agree.
Very
And
true.
thank you for that story also. Kriti, we move on. Kriti, a question that we have for you is uh, beyond diversity, can organizations actually move beyond those token diversities that we do to make it actually collaborative, actually inclusive? Can that actually happen, or will we
So,
be always restricted to that tokenism?
sure. So, it is more about, rather than counting heads, we are truly talking about who is the one calling the shots, right?
Yeah.
So we see that even in our Indian offices, and we see that overseas also. You'll always see that there's a clear divide. While a lot of cross-cultural meetings happen, cross-functional project teams get formed, but don't we always see unintentionally also there's a set of people who'll always be the key decision makers, and then there are others whose silence is almost understood as agreement, right? So those are some things which we need to really be watchful of. And I think it's very important that as we talk about truly being inclusive, the leadership or the teams who are really the stakeholders, they need to be consciously taking a step and making the design such that it is truly equitable, and it goes beyond who's really in the power game and deciding on to the project, how the way it moves. So sometimes we need to really decentralize the technical authority also, and especially all of us coming from technology related areas, and especially the way this has been set up and we're talking about innovation. Often what happens is that we're talking about people who are deep into technology seats really governing or taking the main seat. So I think it's always important to consider the other lens also. So teams from marketing, product, and customer, and also get fair representation so that they are also able to bring about diverse views. And if we were to really have small teams formed, then it's important to see how people can reverse shadow also each other, right? So like for example, those who are on the user interface side, or those who are, let's say, doing the machine learning and algorithms, they are the one bringing the customer intent also. So the whole idea is that by design we make such teams, and the way the whole matrix get finalized, that people who are not speaking also, or silent brainstorming, is also giving enough cues to really incorporate an equitable view, rather than just calling a team as diverse and bringing that. Because we've seen that, in fact, in my last role in Optum also, where we were hiring the technology graduates from north, technology graduates from south. Within India also, we used to see different demographics, different way, and even different retention of people who've joined the organization. So every group needs to be dealt in a different fashion. At the same time, it's very important that everyone does feel equally empowered to take decisions when it comes to teams who are actually there. And it's also very important that as leaders, we are able to provide psychological safety to people to express their viewpoint. That to me is a very important parameter. when we are even talking about people stalking, or people really talking about India's prime minister into a different thing, why are people, one thing is that okay, you have a freedom of expression, but at the same time it's very important for people to be feeling psychologically safe. The very reason that we are talking about this in the panel is because psychological safety is a given. So that is an important parameter to be able to really practice inclusivity in the true sense, and not just making that as a head count. You could just make a female panelist as a part of this discussion because you want to represent diversity, but are you really giving a fair chance to others to do so? That's exactly the way I would extrapolate the whole situation to an organizational scenario.
Makes absolute sense. Thank you, Kriti. I think being able to come as you are is not the responsibility of the individual, but of the organization as large. And I think psychological safety is something we sometimes take for granted, but I think that has to be worked on. And so with that, we come to an end to the first segment, where basically we are saying that diversity alone doesn't create innovation. It is the organization, how they include, how they ensure dialogue, communication, overcome those barriers, and that learning from all of this is what is making the real difference. Now that we have explored the why, I think let's shift to the how part of it, and especially to the role of L&D in building cross-cultural capability. So, Manoj, we start with you now. So,
Sure.
what type of interventions, learning interventions, best promote cross-cultural understanding and collaboration?
Okay, so before I get into the type of it, let me give you another small situation here. Now, it's a very familiar for many people. Imagine there is an Indian as a manager. He was asked to lead a global team for the very first time. You know what and all happens. I'm just taking from what Kriti said. I'm just trying to connect it here. Now, for example, if there is an American team member, you know what he does it? He gives feedback very direct, and he keep it blunt. Now, what happens to this Indian manager who is exposed to the first time to an American? He finds that, oh my God, this guy is rude. Now, let me put another perspective. There is a German colleague, and then that colleague openly challenges this guy. And then this manager, the poor Indian manager, he feels completely disrespected. So the meetings becomes completely uncomfortable and collaborations just start slipping away. Now, that's very, very important that we do. So what went wrong here? Is it the IQ issue? No. Or is it an EQ issue? No. So then what is that issue? I put it here as a CQ, which is the cultural quotient. What does this mean? It is not about changing who you are or abandoning your own culture. It is about adapting your behavior to a different cultural context, and that too without losing your authenticity. And this is the first point that I want to bring it here. So on that front, if I had to build as an L&D, what are the things that one person can do it? The first and foremost thing, of course, we need to facilitate workshop, and that too using some of the real workplace examples. There has to be workshops which has to be driven down to the last person in the organization. The second important thing, training about communication is perfect, but it has to have the language sensitization. It is not just not about what, but it is also how it is said, because there are many aspects. Even a silence is considered as very negative thing at certain places. So we need to be a little cautious onto it, right? Explore some of the self-assessment tools. There are tools like CQ or Hosfit's global cultural dimension or globe leadership model. So let people undergo some of these assessments to understand from an L&D perspective where you can put them into it. Conduct some of these reflection exercise, my culture versus other culture kind of stuff. Use business simulations is another interesting thing that we can do it. Very recently, I had an opportunity to visit IIM Indore. So I was part of one of these sessions where the business simulations that they brought in was really helpful for me to understand how the other cultures think and think and process the thoughts. Even if there is an AI, use AI in terms of creating virtual realities, because today everything is possible. So we can actually create virtual creativity and counter some of those culture things. Very recently, in one of the LinkedIn meet and in the other meet, I saw there is an AI agent where a sales guy can practice in front of the bot before he go and address the client. The same way we can actually bring those sort of bots, and then they can assign some of those learning projects to them, which will help these people a lot. But remember only one thing, Siju. Continuous reinforcement, it will play a critical role, but it is often missed by many L&Ds because the reinforcement is missing onto it. And CQ development cannot be done with once a time or one a time program. Okay, so they need to create that it as a capability building so that they can create a strong teamwork and high innovation can be possible and impactful employee engagement would be in place. So these are certain things which I would like to recommend from an L&D point of view.
Thanks, Manoj. And I agree. I mean, talking about and doing all of this once also wouldn't help. We are, because most of us from that L&D talent management space, uh, the forgotten curve is something we keep talking about. That at
True.
the end of the day, you know, within a week of us learning something formally, you almost lose out on 70 odd percent of the people who would have forgotten whatever we've learned. So hence the reiterations, either through multiple nudges, mods, e-learning, whatever, is very important to keep reiterating these. uh, I'll move to Kriti now. Kriti, how do you think, how can organizations design learning programs that build cultural intelligence but on a scale?
So thanks, Sijin, for this question. There are a couple of aspects with starting with what Manoj said. CQ is the need of the hour, and I think from learning hat we need to not only think about competency as the core C, but also the cultural quotient. Right. So earlier, our entire focus has been the competency framework and everything that is revolving around the core competency development and strengthening. So at the same time, since we all come from organizations where different cultures are involved and so are the geographies, it's important that culture fitment also becomes an important part. Now, considering that I come from an operational excellence background, there are certain fact based things that I'd like to bring in here. So when you have, for example, people from different projects and all working at a scale, it's very important to have documentation play an important role. For example, setting up operational definitions and measures where everyone's common understanding about the projects and the glossary and the common terms is standardized. So as learning experts, it's very important to bring a whole lot of standardization. At the same time, be cognizant and aware of how the culture interpretation will be. But everything which is objectively defined will have less vagueness, I would say, or lesser gray areas for people's common understanding. Right? Having said that, at scale, things will not happen unless we try to, we are not going to be trying to train everybody to assimilating, because there are so many cultures that we work, especially for multinationals. You will have
Yeah.
Latin, you will have Middle East, you will have Southeast Asian markets. How many people will you train for whom? So you need to pick and choose your cultural ambassadors for where they are more bilingual, where they are more bicultural, and who has worked in
So,
cross
Kriti,
locational.
I just want to add, just ask one more while you're continuing with your response. How important is it to balance it with that local relevance?
So I would say, Sijin, it's extremely important. While I think it's almost like what we thought will bring out as almost another shade of thinking globally, but at the same time acting locally also. But that also has a very important fine balance, because acting locally does not mean that you act in silos, but at the same
Hmm.
time, if you are able to define what at the higher level, how needs to be left to the local leadership, I would say, because they are the one who are able to fine tune the cultural nuances and bring those aspects as a part of the entire project or as part of a large scale transformation. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Would think.
Yeah.
And then some of the other things that we can bring is, for example, a high dependence upon user manuals, guidelines, And then let's say if you're having meetings and all in place, then it's important to do a 2 minute stand up on the cultural sensitivity. For example, any holiday which is planned across geographies, or right, anything about the timelines and all. So those are some basic hygiene factors that need to be practiced as an organizational, not only just a tech mark, but it's an important prerequisite so that we are able to do it on scales. Otherwise, losing sight of an important holiday in India, or losing sight of an important thing which is happening in the US, often brings in hardships, or the grudges that we feel, that they could be sensitive of keeping meeting during Diwali time, right? So
Mm.
some need to be very well planned, and even the annual calendars that get circulated between the learning teams, we can all make a conscious effort to highlight and earmark important dates, important time zones and all, so that these things, as they are set in the beginning of the year, the tone of the cultural sensitivity is set.
Yeah.
Similarly, having more user manuals in place, having standard documentation, and like I said, you use your own people to become more of cultural ambassadors and help bridge those gaps and nuances, which will act locally also. And then the way this will have to be developed is more about the leadership shadow that you cast. And like Manoj rightly said, I think the simulations and all also play a brilliant role here, because they are not going to judge you; they will only come back and give you objective feedback. Correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a as a punch bag, or
And
you as a practice back and things.
so we've just connected two things. We've just connected AI and psychological safety in a different light now. Yeah, so when you bring in and you can be yourself as much and not and completely ensure that from a skilling perspective that barrier of being judged is moved out. Yeah, that's is perfect. Yeah. So we move into with to Harshal. Harshal, we have a question for you. So
Yes.
uh, what role does experiential learning, such as which is basically when we talk about the 10, 20, 70%, the 70%, so such as global projects, exchange or simulations, how does they help in their role in building cross-cultural capability?
Right. So if I have to talk from our organizational context, so basically the umbrella of experiential learning is wide. So it actually goes beyond the structured learning as well. So what is cross-culture capability building? So basically it is about developing skills, mindsets, and the behaviors, and it is essentially helping people learn how to work effectively across disciplines, cultures, and regions. And I feel that one of the powerful way to build this cross-cultural capability is through experiential learning. So while classroom sessions and awareness programs are a great way to introduce the concepts, but then I feel cross-cultural capability truly develops when people are exposed to different cultural differences, skill differences, and that is how they adopt to the various behaviors. So allow me to give basically two concepts here, context, in fact, which will help us understand, I mean, how experiential learning basically helps bridge the expectations and the realities. So under our leadership, under our learning university, in fact, we are running a program for our emerging leaders. And this program is actually being carried out in collaboration with one of the top universities of the world. So while the participants are encouraged to participate in the modules, in the classroom modules, at the same time, a significant amount of time they spend outside the classroom collaborating with the leaders and working on real-time projects which will have a greater and significant impact on the business outcomes. So here you see that, I mean, it is not only restricted in the classroom, so it goes beyond. The other context is from the global projects also. So when people, teams actually collaborate on global projects, so they normally begin with the assumptions that what is the style of working of the clients or the teams from the various regions. And only when they come together, they collaborate, they interact in the meetings, and they solve the challenges together, they truly understand the context, the communication style, the priorities, and the feedback styles of each other. So I feel that experiential learning basically helps bridge the expectations and the realities for the organization and for the individuals. Second important thing, I'll connect with what Manoj said, that I mean, he gave an example of individuals from American background and so on. So I feel that experiential learning also helps in uncovering biases. So when people are working in a specific regions, and across the region. So basically, it helps them uncover biases which they may not realize they have. Okay, so for example, if two teams are collaborating, so one team might prefer highly structured documentation while other team might be relying on discussion-based assignment. So initially, what happens is each of them may feel that this is an unfamiliar kind of a work or maybe ineffective type of a work. But only when they collaborate, they come together, they start appreciating the different methods and they eventually feel that both the methods are equally effective. And this process actually helps us to basically address the assumptions and broaden thinking. The third and important aspect of experiential learning that we have personally experienced is it helps individuals to uncover the discomfort. Okay, because we have mechanisms in place where individuals are exposed to different cultures through our learning programs. So what we have normally seen is when people start collaborating across cultures, across regions, so normally there is a hesitation in the beginning. All right, they feel little reluctant about adapting to different communication styles and navigating unfamiliar work. Okay, but then through such kind of an assignments, through global communities, through these platforms, basically individuals eventually start feeling more comfortable after participation, and such kind of unfamiliar situation then feels to be manageable and eventually becomes a strength for the teams also and for the organizations also. And last point I would like to say is that experiential learning is a great way for reflecting, because lessons learned is something that we do after the projects. There are also knowledge sharing forums that we do after the projects, which actually helps the individuals to understand what has worked in the project, what challenges were solved, and how eventually they have contributed to the organization outcomes. And then this reflection eventually becomes a habit and then leads to growth for its people. And to sum up all this, in fact, I would say that experiential learning for us is also built in the learning philosophy, where 70% of the learning comes from experiential exposure. So be it structured training, be it global assignments, short-term deputations. So we place enough emphasis on experiential learning and exposing people to different disciplines, different cultures, and different geographies.
Yeah, thanks, Harshal. I think very, four aspects you've got of
Yeah,
experiential learning, and I think very brightly put. And I like the fourth one most because for me, that action learning projects is where the transfer happens actually.
yeah,
And that's fantastic. So basically, what we are hearing is that that while awareness comes from learning, actual capability gets built is through the experience part of it, and that's where
absolutely.
organizations need to do is creating those experiences. Yeah, is you know we know that ultimately cross cultural innovation heavily depends on leadership. Ultimately, it's not what you say, it's what you show that sends the signal. Because at homes also, we when a for people with little children, when we have neighbors or some relatives come in and bring gifts, first thing is we tell our child, okay, say thank you. But they have never seen at home the spouses between themselves, they never exchange thank yous at all. So it's all about, what they see is what they will do, and what kind of signals is the leadership sending across. So let's explore that dimension a bit. Harshal, this time we'll start with you.
Sure.
Uh, so, what leadership behaviors are critical to fostering an inclusive and innovation driven culture?
All right. So, thank you for the question, Sijin. So, if I reflect on what truly drives innovation and inclusion in the organization, I feel that leadership behaviors are one of the most important levers. Okay, because if leaders are to drive innovation and inclusion in the organization, what they consistently do, how they show up, and how they engage with the people is really what matters. So normally when we deal with leaders, I mean, as strategic partners, some of the very basic and foundational things I would like to share here is one. That leaders have to create and build a psychological safe environment, and this is something that Kriti has already spoken about. So when we talk about such kind of an environment, so it is an environment where people feel comfortable and confident to speak up, and where failures are not punished, but in fact those are seen as a learning opportunities. Okay, so in cross culture collaborations, so mistakes, misunderstandings are bound to happen, but when leaders respond with reflection, when they respond with openness, people are normally encouraged to speak up and share their views and ideas. Another important leadership behavior I feel is active listening, because active listening is part of continuous learning journey. And a very quick example that comes to my mind is, in fact, recently we just concluded with talent reviews. The reason I'm bringing up this example is because I just wanted to share, I mean, how and in what way, in fact, leaders want to experiment, reflect, and support the people in the organization. So when we were actually undergoing through these reviews, one of the interesting and fascinating thing that we saw where leaders were willing to put their time, efforts in the growth of the people. In fact, they were the ones who were actually willing to explore unconventional career paths for the employees. So somebody from strategy can move to an engineering department, or somebody from engineering can move to a commercial department. And we have seen that largely organizations, I mean, how much ever they talk about unconventional career paths, but when it actually comes to implementation, they normally rely on the linear career paths. But then this was a scenario where leaders were actually willing to offer unconventional career paths to the employee. Uh, Third point, I would say that leaders have to stay ahead of the trends by being curious. Okay, so we have seen the business environment is very dynamic and it is continuously changing at a rapid pace. So having an understanding about not only self organization, but also about the industry, also about the sector, and having that global mindset and thinking from the global mindset is very critical. Over and above this, the leader also needs to have a view of geopolitical situations. What are the current trending trends in terms of technology, in terms of digital AI, and at the same time, how this can have an impact on the organization and what opportunities can be leveraged for the organization. So I would say that, I mean, a leader has to explore beyond familiar work processes and adapt to the newer ways. Fourth
So,
is, I believe that, yeah,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I was
yeah,
just wondering while you are speaking that if you can also, I thought you were concluding, uh,
yeah,
you know, is there any particular leadership behavior which has like the biggest trust impact?
yeah.
Anything that you've
Lasting
seen
impact,
in
is
your
it?
organization?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm coming to that. So yeah, so the leadership behaviors that I am actually talking about are the ones which we have seen have worked in our context. And like I said, I mean, these are the ones which are very basic and foundational, but has a very impact at the organizational outcomes. So in addition to, I mean, creating psychological safe environment, fostering growth mindset, staying ahead of the trends, the fourth leadership behavior I feel is rewarding the right perspectives, because in a global organization like ours, people will normally come with different perspectives, different ideas. So the way leaders acknowledge and adopt to those ideas is very important. And through this, in fact, they demonstrate that diversity is not a barrier but is an asset. And lastly, I feel that leaders have to create an environment where everyone feels that they are a leader and they are accountable for their work, basically. So, in global context, in global scenarios, leadership cannot be just hierarchical, but it has to be a shared leadership. And leaders have to promote that the ownership of the task is not just with the individuals or the employees, but they also have to own their own learning journey, their own growth prospects. So I feel that there are many other aspects of leadership behavior like managing change, then thinking strategically, adaptability, resilience. But I feel that these are the ones which are very foundational and have a deeper impact on the organization and its people.
Right. Okay. Thanks a ton, Harshit.
Yeah.
So Manoj, last time at one of the questions, the first questions I had asked you about barriers. On that same note, let me ask you from challenges. Yeah, and so what do you think that leaders, what kind of challenges do they face when managing these cultural diverse teams? And any examples you see, any real
Yeah.
life examples on how they could overcome them?
So the first thing when Harshal spoke about it, about the 4 or 5 points that he said, I want to put it in one word. It's like one size fits all. Is it possible? No. So
Yeah.
there is no one single approach which can fit all. There's no one single t-shirt size. There is no one single shoe size. So it depends. It depends upon every individual. See, when a leader is handling a diverse teams, he may gain access. Like again, like what Harshal said, I'm just picking out some of the points there. He may gain access to the broader perspectives. He may have the innovation, global insights. But the problem is with the approach. How is he going to approach? Because some of the challenges, as I said at the very earlier, misinterpretation of silence, misinterpretation of directness, misinterpretation of body
Mm.
language, everything can arise as a challenge. Okay, it is not just process oriented, it can even lead to a relationship oriented. And that's what we always say, as a leader you should always look at various perspectives. How do they look at
So
it,
what
or what are the
you're saying is that whatever the leader does or doesn't do, whatever she says or she doesn't say, all is sending across a signal.
Absolutely, yes. So to take one some small live example, so yesterday at home that has happened. So when my wife served something, when you spoke about gifts, I'm saying something which is happening on a day-to-day basis. My wife served something, and then I tasted it, and I said it was really good. I just appreciated in front of my kids. After 2 minutes, my younger daughter came and said that, "Mommy, this is really nice." And then the elder daughter also came to me. I have two daughters, so she also came and said it was very nice, and never ever it happened. So once people, the kids see, look at you in the same way at the office, they look at the leaders. So what I did is, like, one of my favorite synonym. I started with a story and then I gave you a situation. So here I thought I will take you through a synonym, which can be easily remembered by everybody. As a leader, they need to respect. What is this respect? RESPECT. So first, R stands for reduce complexity. Maybe in terms of language, they can't get into Sashi Tharoor English, even you're trying to talk to a Japanese guy or a US guy. Okay, keep sentences short and clear and use inclusive language. That's very important. Many people think that, okay, if I handle an culturally diverse, I will say hi guys. Rather than saying that hi guys, if you start saying hi team, it might work out pretty well for the leader. So the first word R stands for reduce complexity. The next one, E, express visually. Again, I picked it up this particular point when I went to Singapore. I had a just at a local vendor evening. When I asked a price for a specific product, they didn't explain it. They took a calculator and then they showed it. Now, what has happened? A simple visual communication that can easily sort out many of the problems, right? So even as a leader, try using written communication more. So that will help out. The next one comes S. Seek clarity. How do they seek clarity? Ask a direct feedback. Don't say that, have you understood? Say that, let me check what I understood is right or not. This is where I come from. Whenever we
That's
say
very simple.
clarity, people say that, have you understood? No, you say yourself, what I understood, is it something what you meant it? That way, that clarity will help in the global perspective. P, pause. Pause before deciding. Be little slow in your decisions and also in discussions. That way it will help you a lot. Then comes E. encourage voices. How do I encourage voices? Sijin, if you remember when you were in a college days, or when this group discussion happens, there would be a panel members who keep watching us. And then how do they pick up the top guy? It is not the guy who presented nice points, but he also made the silent guy to talk. The same thing happens as a leader in a group. Try to encourage people to talk more, and that way it will help you a lot. The next one comes C, connect personally. Very recently, I did not about KYCs, know your customer. I did a small training program on know your reportee, KYR, know your reportee. And then we asked them few questions like what is the place where he stays, how many kids that he has, kind of stuff. A leader doesn't know his own team. So that itself is a very challenge. So connect with them personally, not just for the task, but also beyond the task. And finally, the T, which talks about the trust. Okay, do not focus just on the focus on the output, but do not focus on the micromanagement. The more micromanagement that you do, you are actually losing the entire team. With that, I conclude respect. So it is something very important. Just to summarize the respect again: reduce complexity, express visually, seek clarity, P, pause before deciding, E, encourage voices, C, connect personally, and T, trust outcomes. Over to you.
Fantastic. So respect is something that we will all take back with us. This is one way leaders can, while managing their teams, consciously practice is what you're
True,
saying.
true.
Great. Thanks, Manoj. Kriti, we had asked about the local reference before and local relevance before. I bring back that question, but from a leadership perspective, uh, you know, how do we develop leaders to think globally while acting locally?
So, Sachin, this is a very interesting question because, as we've been working on drafting programs for the leadership, including technology and excellence and the people's behavior, it's a very important aspect that's a part of the curriculum because it's the need of the hour to think global and act local, which is now called as globalization, right? And then, earlier we used to have even people getting interviewed on IQs and EQs. I think now people need to be more sensitive about the GQ, which is more like the
Mm,
global quotient, right? So
mm,
it's important that what in fact Harshal started with, that how people understand or how leadership understands the geopolitical situation, the social economic scenario, and the whole world politics, given the way the whole landscape is changing around us, especially even given the context of 2025 and 2026. The way geopolitics have influenced the organizations is no joke. So how are we even getting leaders to get trained in a way that they are able to understand and also able to utilize those opportunities and still maintain the sanity and keep the people grounded, because it's again about modeling the right behaviors. So some of the aspects that we've looked at, and we've done it across organizations and as a part of our leadership consulting also, we try and drive those messaging is, so while this ability has to happen, but as a practice what also could be done is that the organizations which have got offices across multiple areas give the high potential leaders opportunities to move across geographies and understand the local cultures. Because once you have been there, done that, then that give you a different experience. Manoj was talking about Singapore. He's been there, he's done that. He'll always have that sensitivity in his mind. Okay, so these are some of the things that will help drive a very different and an open mindset. But at the same time, local flavors need to be done as a part of the programs also. So as learning people, let's say even if we put out policies, for example, we had a very active tuition reimbursement policy. So have had the certain policies and programs that are rolled out on a global where everything will apply to all, but we have underlying sections which are specifically applicable to the local geographies, let's say between India, between Philippines, and between US, where the local nuances are there. And like we spoke before also, that you can give the leadership the how, the what part, which is the outcome, but also allow them the flexibility to do a how to toolkit, which
okay.
will
Yeah.
apply and vary locally.
Fair, fair. Kriti,
These are some of the aspects.
any frameworks that is working, or is it case to case that you all are doing, or is it any framework or practice that is working well for you all?
So like I tell Citizen, here again, while we are, defining the project outcomes itself. So, there are some tools. For example, you have the army matrix, right? who's the person who's taking the accountability, who's the member, who's the influencer. So, by consciously, when you are designing teams, bringing the local representation from various offices, once you have a toolkit in place, allow the various voices to get captured so that you are able to bring in those nuances as a part of your project design. Because if you have it as a part of the project design, measuring that also becomes equally easier. If you leave
Absolutely,
it vague,
absolutely.
whatever you will define objectively will get measured at the end of the day. So as a part of the
Very
project design, we need to keep it really consciously so that we are able to bring in concrete measures as well.
Right, right. Thank you, Kriti. I think that kind of, you kind of conclude that if these is the problem is very clearly defined and it's a part of the problem statement or the design document itself,
Sure,
then for surely, as you know, like the 6 Ds of leadership says, you can go ahead to actually go ahead and measure that success of it, and then
sure.
come back and see if you can how you can document it further. With that, we kind of close on the segment three, where we are saying that leadership here is less about having all the answers, and somewhere it's about also, also creating an environment, creating a right environment for these ideas to emerge also. So, which we'll try to focus on sustainability and how do we actually measure so it actually build up correctly. So how do we measure impact and ensure that the cross cultural learning actually becomes a part of everyday work. So Kriti, we'll start with you this time. And you know how does that MOS, how does it actually come in all these initiatives that you talked about? How do you bring in that, how do you measure it at the end of the day?
Sure, Sijan. And we always say that only what gets measured gets improved, and that's why it's so important to put the matrix in the place. While we have all a different nature of projects getting assigned, it's so important to really have objective metrics put in, which may be two-faced. So we could have quantitative metrics of the hard data do the talking for some aspects, or for some aspects we could even talk about behavioral changes. So for behavioral, I would start with it's a little vague, but at the same time, these days organizations focus a lot on the employee engagement or the safety scores. So those scores which we do employee surveys that help us get quite an insight into how the employee pulse is, rather whether where employees feel comfortable challenging the status quo. What is the kind of psychological safety, how engaged are they working for organizations, are they getting opportunities to work on challenging projects or not. So these kind of polls are able to bring in a lot of insight where you exactly know whether some things in the organization are working right or not, because it does show in the satisfaction scores of the employees, and that's why having well designed surveys can do a lot. Then in some things, especially in cross cultural settings and all, like I said, silence should not be construed as an agreement. Again, we need to provide psychological safety so that we are able to challenge the status quo and people do feel comfortable enough asking the difficult questions. Also, I think the way we even draft our questions or the way we are using our frameworks to solve problems, that should also come across as a part of our brainstorming or focus group discussions, right? We all are, considering we are all learning people, we wearing the learning hats, and even the learning programs that get designed, it's important to use FGDs and some at least systemic analysis and all to capture the voice of the customer. Having said that, that brings in some bit of objectivity. And if we are talking about hard data, there are 2 3 metrics that I could think of which have been used by various organizations. For example, the innovation teams, which get rewarded, it's so important to go back and see the composition of those teams. So in Optum also we've seen, the teams who have won the Make It Happen awards or the IT Lead awards, what is the composition? Do they have composition of diverse representation? Do they have cross-functional teams? Are they representing a particular geography? How many people are forming the team? Are there more engineers? Are there designers? Is the person coming from the field as well? So the composition of the team of people who are actually bringing good fits gives you a lot of insight on how this team has been able to achieve the outcome. So that to me is an important measure. also when we are talking about, let's say, innovation, it's also important to see, time to measure, time to build, time to value. These kind of metrics also provide you an insight on how much of time and effort is getting devoted with respect to resources and the leadership to really reward the innovation projects, or how quickly are the new products hitting the market, or how quickly are you able to convert the design into a prototype, right? So these are some of the things that people can be cognizant of when we are talking about teams or companies working on innovative projects. So some, but it's important again, that we do all of this in the design stage. Otherwise, after doing spending a lot of money on the projects or even on the learning programs, then we are
Yeah.
wondering whether it brought about the systemic change, it brought about a behavioral change. So it's important that as a part of the design stage itself, people from various aspects, including the HR, they bring in these aspects, because here the HR angle also becomes very important, because unless the HR and the leadership has an agreement on the measures, these things will not get measured. And training per se is an area like that, where you will not talk about ROI, but these are again the indicators that will help you see whether the measures of success have been achieved or not. But we can still focus on putting some indicators in place, if at all I've been able to
Abs-
attempt.
Yeah, yeah, rightly said, Kriti. I think I'll take away also. I think the fact that and that is where management keeps coming back and questioning. Okay, while it's a brilliant idea and good to have leadership engagement and a lot of initiatives around the cultural, cross-cultural initiatives, learning initiatives that's been done, but sometimes the question at the end of it comes is what needle actually got moved, and what impact did it actually create, and thereby the importance of it going back and involving it in as a part of the design, in trying to find out whether it's a behavior, whether it is productivity, whether it is you know just feedback, like you mentioned in the beginning, through survey or any of these things. I mean, make it a part of the design document itself. It's and once it is recorded, then it goes back and gives feedback again into the other initiatives, whether what we could change again and again, and then socializing around this with other different departments will also give a lot of leverage uh, to these initiatives.
Absolutely. And
uh,
some of it may be immediate and some of it may be short term, let's say about 2 to 3 months, and some of it may be longer term also. But as long as
Longer term
objectivity is there, at least you will know whether the needle movement has happened or not.
happened or not. Very true, very true. So Manoj, my question to you, I mean, probably the last question we have today for you is, how can organizations sustain this momentum and beyond those initial creative bursts that we do when we get these initiatives in this cross-cultural initiatives? How does it sustain beyond that first time?
So the first thing is like what Kriti said is absolutely well. She actually took 50% of my answer. So there has to be some interventions first to develop this cultural quotient or global quotient. But what is happening here is this cross-culture capability is not a one-time intervention. And that is what every leader, every L&D lead has to keep it in mind. Cross-culture capability is not a one-time intervention. Now, the minute when you treat it as an event, for example, I conduct one training, create one workshop once in a year, or maybe I circulate some of the posters or emailers, and then I say that, yeah, then it becomes a tick mark activity, and there is also a question on the ROI, and everything happens. So, without reinforcement, what happens? The behaviors quickly return back to the old pattern. This is where the whole, I mean, this is where you come back to your circle, and then you need to know. It is not about how do we start. That's very important, very, very important. How do we start? But the real question is, how do we sustain the momentum? How many people are actually focused or created budgets to create that to keep that sustain momentum sustained? I read somewhere a very beautiful concept called bridge, BRIDGE, not in synonym, but it's a very powerful word that I read it as building results through inclusive, diverse global engagement. I repeat, bridge is called as building results through inclusive, diverse, global engagement. But how do you do that? And that's where we call it as a 4C framework. Now, what is this 4C framework? Harshal, when he was talking about it, he brilliantly said one thing. The learning is not just about from one side, it has to be about the curiosity. So here I connected with what Harshal said it. The curiosity, first one of the C is like curiosity, where learning should never stop. Or learning should not stop once the formal training ends. Let me put it this way. You just because the training is over, just because the session is over, that doesn't mean that your learning has end. So from an L&D, what is that we need to do? Use storytelling sessions across cross culture experiences, create that as a momentum, recognize and reward. Kriti was talking about recognition, so recognize and reward to the leaders who ask questions, who listen actively, and who are ready to learn continuously. Otherwise this will never work out, because curiosity keeps cross culture initiative dynamic and never on a static. That's the one C. The second C, if I have to talk about it, which is about the connections, which I also said in my earlier presentation. It's like connection is about including relationship into your daily work, not just occasional activities. Maybe you create cross-culture projects, encourage reverse mentoring. I guess Kriti was speaking about another word, reverse. You said something very beautiful word. I missed it, Kriti. So I want to connect it here with reverse mentoring and peer learning. Maybe in a different note, we can discuss a lot about reverse mentoring. But yeah, what happens here is when people work with each other across the across the cultures, the diversity shift from an abstract idea to a lived experience, and that's what we need to give it to us. So connection that turns diversity from a concept into a reality. So that's my second C. When we talk about the third C, one is connection, curiosity. The third one is clarity. Now clarity, it has to be, I mean, without any doubt, the leadership team should know what is the behavior that they are expecting out of it. They cannot be just left out of interpretations. Use simple language, use common language that everybody understands, and then let the expectations be clear. So clarity ensures that inclusion is practiced consistently and not selectively. This is something where our leaders need to remember. And the final C of the day for me is commitment. Anything without commitment makes no sense. A sustainability comes from leadership accountability. Please remember that the leaders need to take that ownership, make inclusion goals measurable and trackable. Otherwise, it will never work out. And demonstrate commitment through visible leadership actions. They should talk about it. When I have to create something on culture, the leaders are the ones who need to take the ownership, take that commitment, and drive it through it in every presentation, in every hurdles that they talk in. Let them do more about on those stuff. That's the way commitment turns your intent into sustained impact. It's a very, very favorite thing which always touches my heart when it turns into an impact. So to put it in a nutshell, building connections through real work, and then nurturing curiosity through continuous learning, providing clarity on inclusive behaviors, and finally reinforcing commitment through leadership accountability. When all these things comes together, the cross culture collaboration stop being just as an initiative and it becomes a capability. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Manoj. Thank you. Thank you. I think I love the word, when you mentioned all of this, if not sustained, I mean, how does it create an impact? And
Right.
that's what this community is all about, isn't it? For
True.
us to make strategic impact. Harshal, my last question for you, and with that we'll conclude also. Uh, so we talked about the cross-cultural learning. How do we make it into a way of life? How do we make it into a everyday practice?
Right. So for us, embedding cross-cultural learning into everyday practice happens less through standalone programs, but more through how our projects, people, and leadership systems are designed. So let me try and answer this question with the platforms that we have for the people, uh, which will demonstrate, I mean, how we are actually embedding the cross-cultural learning. So first is we encourage our people to take up global assignments. So I mean, whatever global assignments we have are first rolled out across the organization, and the individuals are given an opportunity to explore those kind of roles and assignments. So through this, in fact, people get an opportunity to collaborate with not only diverse teams but also diverse clients, and we feel that this is one of the powerful learning environment that we can offer to our people. Second, Manoj actually talk about mentoring. So yes, mentoring is a critical and an useful platform for us. So we run a full-fledged mentoring program where the mentees are actually aligned with mentors from different regions and geographies. Okay, so it is not only from within discipline or within the department, but from people who are from different regions. So this also helps them to understand the cultural nuances, makes them culturally intelligent about different regions and cultures in the organization. And same way, I mean, it is other way around also. So like Manoj said about reverse mentoring. So we have often got a feedback that in fact mentors are also learning from the mentees at the same time. So this is an exclusive and absolute innovation driven platform for us. Third, very important thing is that we are running certain programs in the organization. Like we run a program for our leaders, where all the leaders are expected to undergo the program just to have a common leadership understanding and common leadership language through the organization. Okay, so the leadership styles may vary, but the leadership language has to stay common in the organization. Similarly, we also have our value-based learning, where again all the employees are expected to undergo the training, and you'll be amazed to know that these trainings are in-person 2 days program, which employees have to undergo irrespective of where they are based across the globe. So in fact, this also provides an deeper understanding to the employees about what is expected. At the same time, they also get to know about different cultural nuances within the organization. Last but not the least, we also have knowledge sharing platforms. Okay, so through these knowledge sharing platforms, basically employees understand, I mean, what cultural expectations are there from other regions. They learn how to align those expectations. They learn different communication style, different decision making approaches, which eventually helps them when they deal with teams and individuals from other regions. So this way, I would say that learning is embedded in our workplace practices. And if I have to talk about the impact, so the impact is very visible in a subtle but meaningful way. And this truly results into a stronger collaboration, smoother communication. It ensures that there is enhanced confidence in the team members. And of course, they develop some of the critical capabilities like problem solving skills and decision making.
Great, great, Harshal. Harshal, just out of curiosity again, since we're talking about
Yeah,
curiosity also,
yeah.
uh, any daily behaviors do you see, I mean, which gets, where you see that that this is coming into practice from an everyday perspective. Do you see some daily behaviors in the workplace where that, broadly, that cross-cultural learning is happening, like the 70% of which we say the learning happens like that. Any behaviors which hits you and say, yes, this is definitely happening.
So a very important thing is active listening, because
Mm,
when you are working in an environment where dealing with multicultural teams and individuals, so active listening is something that we practice thoroughly. Second and important is, so we as team members strive for a collaborative success. So it is not your success or my success. It is our success. So initially we have seen an instances where people used to have different understanding of the customer requirements, or they used to carry their credits with pride. But eventually we have developed a culture in the organization where we strive for collaborative success, which results in a greater organizational outcomes.
Thanks. Fantastic. So great. Thank you to all the panelists. I think what we are saying is that when cross-cultural learning becomes a part of how work happens, rather than a separate initiative, that's what actually makes it stick. That's what make learning stick. We'll just summarize some few key themes which stood out today. Was that diversity fuels innovation only when inclusion is intentional. And this we talked about psychological safety and how leadership behaviors set the tone for that. And we talked about how learning must beyond move beyond awareness and to actual real life experience. And somewhere that sustainability, when we talked about sustainability, that is from a day-to-day work life perspective, uh, that that's the eventual truth, that if we can bring in that we can embed cross cultural learning into daily work, and then that's the practical truth. So bottom line is that innovation is not just about a technical capability, it's a cultural one. So on that note, if there's anything else, I remember one uh, you know one proverb where I read it long time back, where it said that organizations that succeed in the future, it'll be the ones that learn faster from difference, not the ones who avoid difference, but who learn from it faster. Yeah. So I think with that, thank you so much, Kriti, Harshal, Manoj. Really appreciate all your inputs. I hope you had a equally good time as I had when we had our conversations. And on that note, I'll hand it over back to Mansi. Yes, Manoj, you were sharing something.
No, I just said thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, CG, for moderating this.
Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure.
you, Sijin. So, we covered a lots of ground today, from psychological foundation of human engagement uh, and the AI leadership. And I want to extend my sincere thank you to, of course, Manoj Kumar, Kriti Kapoor, Harshal Jadhav, and of course, Sijin Thomas, for truly enlightening our today's conversation. Your insights on leadership and talent development have given all of us lots to think about. We navigate this unpredictable world. So, yeah, to our audience, thank you for joining today's panel discussion. We hope we leave today with clear roadmap for our L&D journey, and we look forward to see you how you apply the strategies in your own organization. So, thank you so much, everyone, for joining this panel discussion. It was amazing panel discussion. Everyone, thank you, and have an
Thank you.
amazing weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Mansi.
much.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.